So the year was 1968, and Robert F. Kennedy was running for president of the United States. At a time when the nation was fractured by the Vietnam War, civil rights struggles, and widespread unrest, many people saw Kennedy as a beacon of hope for a more unified America, a more compassionate America. He carried the vision of a better America rooted in justice and equality. His words inspired millions of people as he crisscrossed the country, and his campaign, for those old enough to remember, there's some, his campaign began to pick up momentum and seemed like it was a real thing. People pinned their dreams on the possibilities of real change, of an America that could rise above its divisions. That was the language of the day. America was going to rise above its divisions. This was exciting. But you know what happened on June 5th, 1968, the unthinkable. Robert F. Kennedy, brimming with energy and vision, had just delivered a powerful victory speech in a crowded Los Angeles hotel ballroom celebrating his win in the crucial California primary. The room was electric with hope, electric with people cheering, believing they were witnessing the dawn of a new era. Then in a sudden shattering instant, it was all cut down. As Kennedy made his way through the jubilant crowd, gunfire rang out. You've seen the tapes. Chaos erupted. The cheers turned to screams, and the hope that had filled the room moments before was replaced by sheer horror. People wept, clutching one another, unable to comprehend the devastation unfolding before their eyes. The dream that Robert F. Kennedy had nurtured for a divided nation, a dream of healing, of a new path forward, was left bleeding on the kitchen floor of the Ambassador Hotel. And his death wasn't just a political loss. It felt like a spiritual loss, a moment when a brighter vision of the world seemed to be slipping out of reach. Those who had marched alongside him believed deeply in his cause, and they were left to wrestle with a bitter question: where do we go from here? What just happened? What are we supposed to do? That's a place we find ourselves in sometimes, isn't it? What just happened? Where are we supposed to go from here? I would imagine many here today felt that pain this past Tuesday when a candidate that you love and a platform that you believe in was soundly defeated by someone you think is harmful to America and the people that you love. You woke up Tuesday, I woke up Tuesday, heart full and dreams swelling, believing that love and peace were on the way. But by nightfall, just like the evening when Robert Kennedy fell, your hopes lay shattered. As the election results came in over several excruciating hours, the promise of a better tomorrow slipping further and further away with every passing moment. How many experienced it like that? Did many of us experience it like that? I remember going to sleep finally about 1 a.m. thinking, maybe something happens that nobody's expecting, and then to wake up and realize it. You want to believe in God. You say, I'm doing my very best. I'm trying to follow Jesus. I feel like I have the right empathy and compassion, and I've thought this thing through, and it just feels like it's so right. What just happened? Where are you, God? What am I supposed to do with this disappointment? Is this the way it will always be? How do I move forward from here? How do I find the strength to get through today and hold on to any kind of hope for tomorrow when at least at this moment it feels like the whole world is falling apart? I imagine you relate. You all relate. Now I know there's some here who didn't feel the same way on Tuesday, but you know the feeling that I'm describing. That's what I want you to get, the common feeling. You've had that happen in other areas of your life. In fact, we all have had it happen in other areas of our life where we are just overwhelmed with paralyzing disappointment, paralyzing despair. Sometimes it's grief and shock of losing someone close, whether through death or estrangement. Sometimes it's discovering infidelity or experiencing a deep betrayal from a trusted friend. How did that happen? I wasn't expecting that. For some, it's even things like being passed over for a promotion or losing a job or an opportunity that you really felt like was your opportunity, but it just fell through the cracks, and now you feel hopeless and lost. Some experience the crushing weight of financial ruin. Jane, Joyce, and I drove 2 days ago. We were in New Orleans, and we drove through New Orleans, and especially where the levee first broke, and saw these beautiful homes that had all been devastated, and how the people who owned it, many of them had no insurance, and how the situation was such that they, of course, Mary Shaw, where's Mary? Where's Mary? She's so little. There she is. Mary, you're so little. Mary Shaw was right in the middle of all of that, but we saw it, and not only the poorest of the poor, can you imagine what they went through, the devastation? They never expected it. Everything they had ever known, gone. Mary moved from New Orleans to here because of Katrina. They all had to be moved. And then even people who had means and wealth, suddenly all of that turned in a moment. Devastation. Then other serious despair. People experience the longing for children unfulfilled, the devastation of a pregnancy loss. Those things can be devastating. Receiving a life-altering diagnosis or watching one's health decline. I guess what I'm trying to get you to see is what we experienced Tuesday is devastating, and then it also happens in other areas of our life where you just feel numb. I don't know what to do. The pain of being cut off from your family members or having strained relationships with family members. So I did what I'd normally do when I'm just kind of rocked. I go to the smartest, best person I know to talk to. And I sat down with Jane and said, what do you do? What do you do on stuff like today? And so I have nothing. So honey, if you'll come up and if you'll just finish this, I would like that very much. No, she said something interesting, and she said it to me before. She said, I just go back to my favorite verse. And she said, when I've gone through devastation, and she has, as has her mother, as have all of you, devastating things. She said, I go back to my favorite verse. And she said how this really stuck in my mind. She said I was in a season of my life where I was doing treadmill every morning, and I would put the Bible on the treadmill, and I would read the Bible every morning. I said, I haven't seen that in a long time. So, but she said she was doing it, and she said this verse just hit her. And it's from Lamentations chapter 3, verses 22 and 23. Because of the Lord's great love, or mercy, another way it's translated, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Now that's the text, but I want to give you the context for that verse. And then I want to just share some things that we're trying to do as we're figuring out next steps, okay? So that's the text, Lamentations 3, 22 and 23. Because of the Lord's great love or mercy, we're not consumed. His compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. And I want to give you some perspective, hopefully, on what that means. This is a hugely important story in the Hebrew Bible. When I say the Hebrew Bible, you understand we used to say the Old Testament. I try not to say that. It sounds a little pejorative. I don't want to kind of put them down. It's called the First Testament or the Hebrew Bible in our what we would have known as the Old Testament. This is happening in that context in the Hebrew Bible about 1,000 years before Christ. 1,000 years before Christ. Now let me give you just a little bit of history, and I promise I won't get much into history, just a little bit so you will understand. There are three big giant kings in the nation of Israel. It's King Saul, King David, and King Solomon. All right, those are three big kings. And then when Solomon, he builds this beautiful temple and everything's rocking and rolling, it feels like they are just the hit of the world. And then he dies, and there becomes civil war. And suddenly those two that big kingdom, the kingdom of Israel, they have a civil war and they split. Are y'all familiar with that? They split. And there is a northern kingdom, which is called Israel, and its capital is in Samaria. And there is a southern kingdom called Judah, and its capital is in Jerusalem. So now you're going to have lots of years where you're going to have two kingdoms. And that's why it's interesting when people read the Bible, there's parallel stories happening looking at both of those kingdoms. And so just to give you a little bit of context, the northern kingdom, just a little bit about that, it had kings like Jeroboam. These are just names you maybe have heard of. Jeroboam, Ahab. You've heard of King Ahab. He was married to a woman named Jezebel, not a very popular child's name. Jezebel is considered an evil queen. Anyway, that's what was happening on the northern kingdom. And they survived about 200 years. And they were overthrown by the Assyrian Empire in 722 BCE. All right, so that's the northern kingdom. The southern kingdom is called Judah, and its capital is in Jerusalem. They had 20 kings, and you know some of those names. Rehoboam, who was a son of Solomon. He was the first king of Judah. Jehoshaphat, that's a name that maybe you've heard in the Bible. Or Uzziah, that's a name maybe you've heard. Or Manasseh, maybe that's the name you've heard. The southern kingdom in Judah lasted for approximately 345 years, and it fell in 586 BCE. 586 BCE. Now, the destruction of Jerusalem happened by the Babylonians, and this is what the story is going to have to deal with. 586 BCE, Israel has been on its own, southern kingdom, trying to do its best, and King Nebuchadnezzar's forces came on, and they laid the place down. They annihilated everything. The Babylonian king laid siege to the city, and after months of suffering, starvation, and relentless pressure, the defenses of Jerusalem finally collapsed, but it was a long time coming. The Babylonian army stormed the city, leaving a path of devastation in its wake. They burned the city to the ground. They destroyed homes, palaces, and they destroyed the temple, which they were so proud of. It was their place. It was where God resided, but it got destroyed. The people of Judah were taken into captivity. I mean, this wasn't just they come in and beat you and level you and then they go. No, they come in, beat you, level you, and then take you away to go and live in Babylon. This is a bad, bad part of Israel's history. This is tough. Families torn apart. The city that once held the promise of God now lay in ruins, a haunting reminder of what had been lost. For the survivors, the sight of their beloved city in ashes and the realization of their impending exile filled them with despair. Think of your despair this past week. And then multiply it by many times. Their country was overthrown. They were shackled, and they were led away. During this period of Judah's history, there was one prophet that was supreme, and that prophet was the man Jeremiah. You've all heard of Jeremiah. Anything you can remember about Jeremiah? Bullfrog. Jeremiah was a bullfrog. I knew we had great wisdom at that table right there. That was very, very quick. No, Jeremiah was not a bullfrog. Jeremiah was known as the weeping prophet. And the reason he's called the weeping prophet is because before Judah fell, he would just cry out to the people and say, this is not going to end well for us. This is terrible. You'll see one day it's going to fall. You're not living right. You're not doing right. And he was trying to plead with them. And then after they fell, then he was crying because he was lamenting what had been lost. The once mighty city of Jerusalem with its towering walls and sacred temple lay in ruins around him. Picture this old prophet with all of the city laying in ruins around him. Smoke still curled into the sky from the fires that had raged just a few days before. And I picture Jeremiah walking around, families torn apart, loved ones lost, the people of Judah scattered like dust in the wind. Jeremiah had seen it coming, and now he's having to kind of say what needs to be said. And that's what the Lamentations are. The book of Lamentations, that's what it is. That's what Jane was reading that day, the book of Lamentations, just these words from Jeremiah as he talks about what the people have lost. He talks about what the people are thinking about. He talks about the devastation. He talks about all of those things. Deepest sorrow, darkest night, that's kind of it. And with his voice raw from mourning, but resolute in trust, he pens these words that we're talking about today because of the Lord's great love. We're not consumed. His compassion never fails. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness, O God. Even when everything seemed lost, Jeremiah held on to the promise that God's mercies would rise with the dawn. There was something about a new day. There was something about reminding the people, this looks devastating today, but God's mercies are new each morning. You're not devastated. You're not lost. It's not over. Tomorrow is a new day. Awaken to the new day. Generations later, these words would continue to inspire people. It was written 2,500 years ago, but it's lodged in people's hearts and minds. It is lodged into my wife's heart. It is the thing that she reminds herself and she reminds us of. When it is tough and we go through tough times, she reminds us God's mercies are new every day. Look for God's mercies tomorrow. They are new every day. So, in the early 20th century, a man by the name of Thomas Chisholm was profoundly moved by this story, and he was born in a simple log cabin in Kentucky. Chisholm had experienced his share of hardships. He had lifelong health struggles. He had financial insecurity, yet he clung to his faith in God through every trial, and Lamentations had become particularly meaningful to him. In 1923, reflecting on the constancy of God's care, he wrote the words to the hymn that we sang a few moments ago, Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever will be. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. The last verse this week, so I'm thinking of these things. I'm thinking what Jane had said. I'm thinking about the story of Lamentations. I'm thinking about Chisholm's hymn. And then I was reading the hymn, and this is the last verse, and this is what I want us to kind of leave with, is this two little thoughts. The last verse goes like this: pardon for sin and a peace that endureth, thine own dear presence to cheer and to guide. Here's the line: strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings all mine with 10,000 beside. Let me say that again. Pardon for sin and a peace that endures. So in the midst of devastation, there is peace in our hearts. Thine own dear presence to cheer and to guide. God, you are with us, and that gives us peace knowing that you are with us. Strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. So this is all I got. God, we need strength for today, and we need bright hope for tomorrow. That's what we need: strength for today, bright hope for tomorrow. The author and research professor Brené Brown, who has spent her life studying courage, vulnerability, shame, and empathy, she was talking about how people need to approach life, because she says there's going to be devastation always. There's going to be the election that goes the wrong way. Your country was leaning this way. Now it seems to be going a totally different direction. The pregnancy ended and you didn't want it to end. The baby is in distress. All these different things will happen. What do you do? She says you have to be brave enough. No, she says this: your ability to live a life that's full of love and meaning, to make the world a braver and kinder place, to disrupt and reshape the future has very little to do with the greatness of your plan. It depends completely on your ability to get back up when you have fallen down and begin again when your plan fails. What starts here changes the world if you're committed to getting back up and beginning again. The exact same number of times that you fall, trip, and are pushed down, you've got to get back up. Every time you got to get back up. We have two people in our church in their 90s, two of the greatest humans on the planet. I bet they would tell you there's a lot of falling down in this life, and they would say each time they had to decide, am I going to get back up? And they just got back up. She continues, you have to be brave enough to acknowledge that you're hurting, that you're sad, that you're disappointed, that you're grieving, that you're feeling shame. Whatever feeling you have, own it. You cannot begin again when you're dragging unspoken and unexplored emotions behind you. She said, I have collected over 400,000 pieces of data over 20 years, and I have never seen a single person who's built a life, a family, or a career that did not have to scratch their way up from a devastating disappointment and begin again 100 times. So I've thought about that this week, and I've thought, can I give them any word on strength for today, bright hope for tomorrow? And I'm going to go quickly, a couple of thoughts. Ground yourself in the present moment. Ground yourself in the present moment. That means to focus on the here and now rather than being consumed about what happened last week, last month. Self-care can begin with simple grounding practices. Pausing to pray. I know that's not intuitive sometimes, especially when we just don't know what to do. But I found myself spending time just thinking and saying, God, I'm just experiencing this moment. I want to walk with you. I don't understand it, of course, but I just want to walk with you. Breathing deeply. This is that grounding practice, breathing deeply. Taking a walk to calm your spirit. I did that a couple of days this week. Again, by myself, no headphones on. I didn't want headphones, didn't want noise. I wanted silence. I wanted to practice that verse from the Psalms that says, be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. Focus on daily bread. That seems to be a pattern in the Scriptures. Give us this day our daily bread. Just as God provided manna for the Israelites, we're called to ask for daily strength. I don't know about next week. I don't know what next week's going to hold. But God, I need strength for today. I need strength for today. I need small, manageable steps that I can take. I need to reflect on the words of Jesus. Don't be worried about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Walk grounded today. Connect with community. That's why I was dying. I wish we could all got together Wednesday. That would have been lovely just to sit around. And Jane and I, we went to New Orleans on Thursday. We had tickets to a Bonnie Raitt concert. I know it's tough. We had to do it. I mean, we just had to go. It's Jane's favorite artist. She's 75 years old. Not Jane. Bonnie Raitt is 75 years old. It was her birthday, and she rocked it. It was unbelievable. It was so good. I don't even know why I said any of that. Except, oh yeah, now I do. We were saying we wish we weren't gone because we wanted to be with y'all, and we have held on to the idea of brunch today that at least we were going to get to be with y'all. I have missed the heck out of y'all. I missed the heck out of y'all. And so one of the beautiful things is when you are hurting is to be in community. Engage in spending time with people that you love. Joe, your presence brings so much joy to Joyce. Every week she looks forward to sitting by you at church. That means the world to her, and I know it means the world to you. And engage in acts of care. This is something about the village that I was just blown away by. Tricia, we didn't know Tricia was in as bad a situation as she was in. And we found out on Tuesday, and Jane went and stayed several hours with Tricia in the hospital on Tuesday in the emergency room. It was bad in the emergency room. And then we're heading out of town, and so I wrote people that I knew Tricia well. Didn't want to write it to everybody, but people that I knew and loved Tricia. I said, hey, Tricia's in the hospital. And everybody's kind of had this fog and this funk, and I get it. But I wrote to these people, and then we began to get responses. We're driving to New Orleans. We began to get responses from people who were connecting with her. And all people, so many different people, connecting different ways. David McCart actually was able to go and to pray. If y'all don't know David right here, David was able to go and to pray with Tricia. And it was just beautiful. And then checking up the next day, I just realized it was in moving our attention to someone else that we can help, someone else that needs us, was a beautiful way. For strength for today, what can I do today? Neil has that characteristic about him. Sometimes he'll be distraught about things, and he'll make somebody dinner, and I'll say, what you doing tonight? And he'll say, well, this couple's coming over to the house. I'm making dinner for them. And it's just a way of kindness, of being able to be loving to people. I love that. Strength for today. How do I do it? Grounded, yes. Thinking about strength for this day, yes, that's what I need. Looking around, finding people I can help, that's a good thing. And then bright hope for tomorrow. Bright hope for tomorrow. That's important. When Jeremiah wrote about this, I think he was saying, listen, it's not over. It looks over, but it's not over. Y'all know the phrase, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, right? We all know that phrase. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Martin Luther King famously used the phrase during the civil rights movement, but it actually wasn't originated by him. It was originated by a Unitarian minister by the name of Theodore Parker. Theodore Parker originally wrote about this long arc of history in a sermon in 1853. 1853, this is what he said. I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one, but from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice. Man, that's a smart person, isn't it? I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one, but from what I see, I'm sure it bends toward justice. Parker was expressing the belief that although the struggle for justice may be slow and arduous, there is a gradual, inevitable movement toward moral righteousness, toward goodness, towards love. You know what? It's true. It's true. We do move forward, but it's slow. It's slow. And sometimes we think we're taking steps like this, and then it's like, wait a minute, we just did this. But that's the way it has always worked. It's sad. We wish it could be a constant climb. We wish it was always next things, moving up, better always in one direction, but it's not that way. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. This week it helped me to go. I just began to think about areas in this world where we are way better now than where we were 40 years ago. Literacy around the world, hunger issues around the world, women's rights. And I know when you're in the middle of this and you're thinking, they can't vote for her because she's a woman, evidently, or whatever the situation is, you think this is a step back. But overall, in the world, it's moving forward. We have moved forward. This is a setback. It's a step back, but it can continue to move forward. We have to understand the arc is long and the arc is slow. I think my wife is brilliant because this verse meant so much to her, and it has taken on new meaning to me because of the Lord's great love or mercy. We're not consumed. God's compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Let me close with this. I heard a sermon recently presented by a brilliant woman. I didn't get her name, and I can't find the speech, but I was listening to it, and it just struck me, and I'd scribbled a few notes when she was speaking. This was done several years ago, but it was during a time when people had experienced disappointment and they were feeling isolated and alone. She was very moving and she was profound, and I remember she said this. She said, you might think the future is dark. And so the mother in me asked, what if we are experiencing not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb? And I thought, ding, ding, ding. What if in this darkness, it's not the tomb, it's not the end. It is just the beginnings of what is going to be birthed. It doesn't mean the end of anything. It means something could be birthed. And then she said this, what does a midwife tell us to do? It's my wife's favorite show. We watch, I know midwife stuff. Anybody needs help, I can probably know how to do stuff because I just watch this show. They always say two things. They say, breathe and push. Would you say that with me again? Breathe and push. Breathe and push. One more time. Breathe and push. Let's breathe and let's push. And let's not give up the fight. We will labor in love. We will labor through love. And we will believe God's revolutionary love will carry us forward. And we will move toward this beautiful vision that God has always longed for us to know. Would you pray with me, please? God of mercy and God of hope, we come to you today with hearts that feel the weight of disappointment. Some of us are carrying a deep sense of loss, confusion, and even fear for what the future holds. We confess that it's hard to see your hand at work when our dreams feel shattered and our hopes seem out of reach. But we hold on. Lord, we hold on to the promise that you are faithful. We trust that even in our darkest hours, your love surrounds us, sustaining us with strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Thank you for being the one who never leaves us when life feels unsteady and life feels uncertain. Help us, God, to find strength in small things, in kindness as extended to a friend, in the beauty of the world around us, in the quiet assurance that we are held by you. Give us the courage to keep putting one foot in front of the other and to find light even when it feels dim. And Lord, plant in us seeds of hope for tomorrow. Remind us that your mercies are new every morning, and even when we can't see it, help us remember you are working for good. Guide us to be people who bring healing, who listen well, who do not act arrogantly, but who listen and love and work for justice in ways that honor you. As we move from this service into our brunch, and then ultimately as we leave this place, may we feel your peace, the kind that surpasses understanding. May your Spirit breathe hope into our weary souls, and may we be strengthened by the promise that your faithfulness never fails. In your unfailing love and great compassion we pray, and everyone says, amen. Well, y'all, you look so great, so great.